everybody, and today is the August Flower of the Month video. I've missed a couple and I apologize for that, but like I said, sick doggies mean I have to give up a few things. So we are hopefully back on schedule. I'm going to try anyway. So this is the August Flower of the Month, which is the poppy. And it is much simpler than it looks. If you see this finished product, it probably looks a little complicated. It really is very, very simple. So let's get on to how I did it. The first thing that you're going to need for this is a 2-inch circle. I'm using, what's the name of this officially? Circles number 2 die by Sizzix. And it is this one here. And I'm also using red vellum paper. And I wanted to let you know that you only need 2 circles for that flower. I use Paper Accents, the vellum red number 916 for my flowers, but if you have any other kind of vellum that, you know, around the house or whatever, that works well. It's real simple. We're going to start out using them solid and we're going to cut them apart after. So what you kind of want to do is visualize you want 3 petals out of this circle. So I kind of just take my fingers and divide it up that way. That's how it works for me. And I'll just make a little line. This does not have to be exact. So you can tell, I'm sure one is wider than the other. It's not a big deal to me. I put them on top of each other, and why do it again? Just copy what you did. You're going to only need 2. And what I do, seeing I'm right-handed, what you're going to do is you want to make a little dip, a little divider to separate your petals. I kind of do it this way. I go here and I just go by my marks and I go in once. You could turn it and continue around, but I'll show you what I do. It's probably just how my brain works. Actually, I want to come back a little farther. I want a little bit more of a milder curve, but that wasn't that big of a deal. I'm just too darn picky. Then I flip it over so that I can come at it at the same angle that I started and flip it and pull it off. You want to do it, you know, all in one cut, that's fine. I mean, crafting is about whatever makes you comfortable. So I'm just giving you ideas and then you accommodate your own ideas. So really, you can tell that's wider than this. It doesn't matter. It's really just getting a generic type of shape started and then we go from there. I did try to do these with regular red cardstock, a 65-pound cardstock. If you're going to use it, I would suggest you do not do 80. It's a little too heavy. But I personally didn't care for the look of it as much as I do using vellum. So that's why I'm showing you on the vellum. Now the next step that I did was, and you could probably do this at the end too, but I'm using an Archival ink. I want something that's permanent because if it's a dye-based ink, it's going to smear. And I'm trying to give a little dimension to these petals. So I go along and I ink the edges with the ink, front and back side. Then you give them just a little bit of time to dry. And we're going to come back and we're going to re-ink again when we shape the petals, because you want to get a little bit of that ridges of the molding of the ridges showing. You can probably tell if I bring in the finished one that I've gone back over here to give it just a little bit more texture. So do front and back of both. I'm going to set this one aside to dry. This should be dry about now. So what I like to do, and you can do this on anything. You can do it on a pen, you can do it over your finger, you can do it this way and push it through. That works really well. But what we want to do is go into the center of this petal. So if you want to turn something upside down, if that works better for you that way, and go like that. I will sometimes do this the first time, put it in the middle and kind of just get it so I can grasp it, cup it between my hands, collect it all up. But you also can use, if you have the molding tools, I use this quite a bit. Turn it upside down, crunch it down on the top of that, whatever works best. You want to get that first crimp. So if you want to do it over a pen, you want to do it over anything that you have, like I said, you want to just at least get that center spot where you can crimp it down. Once you get it in the center, and if you're off a little bit, that's fine, pinch it. And you're kind of going more for the horizontal pinching. We don't want to crunch it this way. You want to go lengthwise. You want to keep those long, lengthy little crease marks. And that's why I like the vellum, because it changes, kind of almost has that glassine, which it is like a glassine look. Open it up and you can see with the vellum where you've creased it, sometimes it gets a little lighter, and that's why I like the vellum paper the best. You don't get that with cardstock, and that's why I think this looks the best. So we're going to do this 3 times with the first petal. You're really looking to recrease it possibly in a different place than you did the first time. If you want to do it 3, 4, 5 times, whatever look you like as you play around with these, you'll see. But you want different creases. You crease them in your hand. You can take them and roll them and scrunch them. Just like I said, make sure you're doing it lengthwise. Don't come down this way. Always go this way. Always go this way. Excuse me. So that's the second attempt. And you can see how that's starting to get more crinkly, like a poppy. So again, I do it the 3rd time. By now, it's pretty crimped in the center, so I really pinch it here and I just hold it and I just go for it. And open it back up. And this is pretty much what we want right here. You're going to do the same thing with this petal. And now you can tell why, if it wasn't exact, it really doesn't matter, because the next thing we're going to do is cut it apart. So we're going to go where we cut the little V and go to the center, clip it, the next V, go to the center, clip it apart, spin it around and do it for the last one, and you've got 3 separate petals. So if you do not have the 2-inch die cut, you don't have a 2-inch punch of any kind, you can honestly go get a small glass from your kitchen. You can get anything that is around the 2-inch size. If you want them a little larger, you can make them larger. Just so you can see, I have a kind of a normal sized hand, so that's about the size of the finished one. We're not crunching these up too much and making them smaller. They pretty much are almost 2 inches in diameter when they're done. So here's my 2-inch punch when I started, and that flower is just a little bit less. Let me get you a blank piece of vellum circle and let me lay it on top so that you can see that really, if you're looking for something that's around that size, you're not going to lose that much diameter on this flower when you're molding them. Sometimes we scrunch them smaller, like I have in my other videos. This is basically like a 1 3/4 inch diameter flower when it's completed. So then the next thing that I want to do is come back with that ink, and front and back, I'm just going to run a sponge across the top just to highlight some of those folds. And you do that on all 3 petals here. Then you're going to do the same process again on that second layer. Fold it, open it up, fold it again, cut it apart, and do this inking. And then we'll do the stamens in the middle. And if you want to dab a little bit more ink on those edges to make it a little bit more noticeable, a little more dynamic, go for it. And let this give it time to dry. It needs to dry a little bit. I did want to show you, here's a picture of the flower that I kind of went off. And so the stamens in here I'm going to show you how to do. This is just a basic red poppy. There's so many kind out on the internet. I played around with a white one, which I did a yellow center, and then I just did the stamens with a black, white with a touch of green. And then I did use the same plum colored Archival ink from Ranger, and I did the same look only on the edges. I didn't drag it across the crinkly parts here. I just did it on the edges, and I did it on both sides. So there's another idea for you if you want to try a different color. right, now I'm going to start on the stamens for you. What I used on my sample is the Prima Donna Petals die from Die-namics, and I just used this center stamen. You guys know how to die cut by now, I'm sure, but I wanted to share with you how I just did it separately. And I'm using like it's a very pastel yellow. You could choose any color you want, like that original one that one that I did that was white. I used white, and then I put my ink on. I started out with yellow on the actual red one, and I cut a couple at a time. And I just run it through real quick. I usually do a ton of these at once and then sit down and make the flowers, but I just wanted to show you the process from beginning to end so that you're not confused. Move this out of the way for you. And then I take this little die, pop it out, this back on my magnet sheet here. Sometimes they stick together because they're pressed so tight. And so what I do, you're going to need 8 of these. So you need a total of 8. And I'll show you how I colored these. Now I started out with just black ink. I'm using the Stampin' Up! Basic Black for this one. Any black ink will be fine. This is dye ink. You can use permanent, whatever you want, and I just use a sponge dauber. I want to get the black on the inside. If I get some on the tips, it's okay, but I really am trying to keep it close to the center of this as I can. There's a lot of black in the original poppy in the stamens. And you're going to do the front and the back side, and you'll see why. The front side, to me, the front side when I'm inking it is the side that's kind of bending down because of the dye. The back side doesn't ink as well because it's almost debossed. It's curved around and you can't get that sponge dauber in as nicely and neatly, but this is the side that's not going to show as much, but you still want to get some ink in there because it may be noticeable if you don't, and I want to get as much dark in the center of that flower as I can. So I go ahead and I do the centers on both sides of all 8 stamens, and if you see that this is a little light, because once it dries sometimes it does lighten up, I'll go back in and I'll just add a little bit more. So you want to go ahead and do all of that for all 8. And we also wanted to mention, if you don't want to buy a die, which I certainly understand, you want to get somewhat of the same idea, I would suggest, I have a 3/4 inch circle punch. These are about 3/4 inch in diameter. Go ahead and, draw a circle, trace a circle, whatever you need to do. You could take this and you could take your scissors and you could come in and you could snip around. Now, of course, you're not going to get the round tips, but I don't really think it's going to be that noticeable once we're completely done. You'd think you would still like the look of it. And then do the same thing. You want to ink in here and get a little bit, you want to get the ink up far enough to where you're just leaving a little bit of a yellow tip. So same idea, you want to make sure that you get that black around if you're using this die, for example, or McGill has some other ones. They don't necessarily, I'm not sure if they all have straight, if they have round. I have one that's, I think it's I think it kind of came with the snowflake. Well, hold on. Let me see what it's called. I've got it over here in the drawer. This is the one that I was thinking of. This one, although this is larger, so this one is a 7/8 inch and it's called the Crystal. You could use this one also. I think you would probably have to snip these shorter, but it's just another idea for you. I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, so go ahead, ink them all, front and back, and then when you're done with that, I do take, let me close this up so we don't dry out our ink pad. I do take a touch of green. I don't want it all solid green. I want a little bit of yellow to show through. And this is Stampin' Up's Pistachio Pudding. And I just dab a little bit here, and sometimes I hold it, sometimes I leave it down, but I just want to dab it in a couple of spots. You still want to see that yellow come through, but you do want a nice shot of green here and there. So hopefully, if I put that there, you can see it. Let me go through and get the rest of it, and then we'll let you see this closer. And the back side also, don't forget the back. And once it dries, like I said, if you think you want a little bit more color, go back in and add a little bit more to it. But you can tell that that does have touches of green, but you're still seeing some yellow, and you've got a nice soft black blend. That's the look you're going for. Alright, so I've got all 8 of the center stamens inked on both sides with all the colors that I shared with you. These are the petal layers that we did before. I did want to add one more thing. This one, for example, didn't get creased that much. If there's something that you see that's not creased as much as you like, you can also scrunch them together this way. Once you've cut them apart, it works really well. So I did want to share that with you. Once you get it all done, if you think you want a few more little creases, go ahead, and then when you ink them, it'll show up a little bit better. So I had one that wasn't quite as crinkly as I wanted it to be. So now what we're going to do, we need one more piece, and then we can assemble the flower. So same piece of like pastel yellow, 65-pound cardstock, and I take a 1/2 inch punch. I just punch one out, and that is going to be for the center piece right here, and that has a little bit of a dome to it, so we are going to do a little bit of molding. And like I've said before, when you see me in some of my other videos, you can see that I don't expect you to have, you know, the molding tools. I understand that I'm on a budget too, so use your pen. Like I've shared with you many times, use your pen and just roll it around and it will mold just fine. I use my 6mm because I have it. It does the same thing with the pen, so don't go buy something just because you need to mold that. So I wanted to share that with you. So what I want to do first is put the first layers together, and it's real simple. You're going to take your finger, your thumb, and you're just going to bend up. So you just kind of want it to have a bend just at that point. Just bend it up. We're going to create like a little flat surface just like that. So you do that with all 6 of them. Okay, and then you want to get some, I use the quick dry adhesive, Scotch quick dry, and I take and I put some glue on the bottom of one petal, and be reasonably liberal with it, and put it together, overlapping just slightly. You want them overlapping just slightly, but not a ton. Just enough to shape it. And then hold it there until it sets up. I pinch really tightly, and when it starts to set up a little bit, I go to the next one. Same thing. You're going to have 3 petals for the first layer, and I'm not overlapping them much at all. You want it to make a nice flat spot in the center. A poppy is not tight. I mean, when they open completely up, I guess is what I want to say, and I'm doing one that's completely fully open. So, and I always have like a baby wipe or something to wipe my fingers off. Alright, now that this layer is starting to dry, what I want to do is take this little domed center and I want to place it inside. So I just take a gob of glue, dab it around so you can see, make sure it's spread out. It doesn't have to be that neat at this point because the center stamens that we made are going to go around the edge of this, so just drop it in. You can use tweezers if you want. You don't want to push down to where you smash the dome that you made. So you want to push on the edges just to embed it into that glue. And you want to let it firm up. Alright, now while this is firming up and drying a little bit, we don't want to mess with anything around this center area until it's dry. I'm going to mold the inside petal so that we're ahead for that. Now, like I had mentioned earlier, I believe that there's a right and a wrong side to these just because I think this side looks nicer than this side. So I'm going to flip the bad side up, in my mind anyway, and I'm just going to press down. You can use a very small tip of a pencil, anything. I really want it to be tight. And you pinch them together at the tip part right here. Pinch it together here. Don't smash the ones that are, we want these to be loose and splayed open. So you want to pinch it together here. You can use a tweezer, whatever, but that's the look you're going for. You want to do that with all 8 and set those aside. This guy is reasonably dry. Hopefully I won't mess him up too much by showing you the next step. Press him in a little bit more. He's not quite dry enough. Alright, so now this has been pressed up, but you don't want it real tight because this is going to be our outside layer. So if you feel that it's up too far, just smooth it out just a little. You want a small curve coming up. And on the inside part of that curve, you want to apply your glue, and where those 2 petals came together, you want to center that and overlap it. And then you also want just a little bit of a reveal here. You don't want it lined up like this. You want it up a little bit, but not real high. Alright? Hopefully you can see what I'm explaining here. And so when you look down underneath, you'll see that that's where that tip will be placed. And again, I just hold it. Now I got to be careful because this center is still a little bit wet and I don't want to smash that domed piece. And that's the look that you want. You can go around and do the next 2 petals the same way. Apply the glue on that tip. Center it between where the 2 petals are overlapping on the first layer and adhere it on underneath. And hold it. And then the last one. Alright, so now I've taken the time to let that center dry so it's nice and dry, and now we're going to add all of these little stamens around the edge of that center. So I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer. Alright, now the best way that I do this is I take each one individually and put a little bit of glue on the bottom. And then I just start putting them, place them next to that center area. You can use a tweezer. I usually still use my molding tool and landing between this edge and here, this section right here. And I press it and I hold it for a few minutes till it sets up so that I can kind of crumple it back up together, because you're going to put all 8 around. Now I have tried to do it, place them like at, if it were a clock, 12 and 6 and 3 and 9, but then it's hard to get them apart so you can get those ones in between, so I just kind of go around. You try it your way, obviously, but I'm just telling you it didn't work that well for me. So I just kind of let this set up, move on to the next one. As they set up and they're nice and dry, then you can push them back just a little bit so that you see a little bit more of that center. Alright, so this is the one finished. And as you can tell, unless you don't like the look of it on the back, I really didn't feel a need to punch a circle like we've done in the past and glue these on that way. They adhered onto each other really nicely, and it almost is a clean finish and it kind of blended really nicely, so I left it alone. But you certainly can put something on the bottom of there if you like. So here's the first one. This one, you can tell I used a lighter yellow on this one for my demonstration today because I wanted you to see the difference. I used a brighter yellow for this one, so it really depends on the look that you want. I'm going to show you that yellow so you can see what it looked like. This is how bright the yellow is for this one. This is the yellow that I used that you saw for the demonstration. So there's a difference. You can tell this has a brighter look. This has a more pastel, simpler look. And then this is the one with the white. I just started out with a plain white stamen like this. I put the black in the middle and then I put it on like we just completed here. And then once I was done, what I did is I took the green color and I took the sponge dauber and I just dabbed a little bit over the top and got that green color. So you basically got more white than you got green on the tips. But so that's kind of how I did that one, so that you know. So I started out with the white. So I hope you give these a try, and we'll see what we come up with for September. If you guys have any ideas, please put it in the comments. But thank you for stopping in, and I hope you give these a try. They're really, really simple. Bye for now.